international relations. I remember, was it when the AU took the decision to allow Morocco its membership again and allow Morocco back into the fold. The EFF raised a concern, and the EFF said that they believe that the ANC is losing its political influence when it comes to international affairs. How would you respond to that, considering that you still have the issue of Western Sahara? It's still an issue, it remains an issue.
You know, sometimes if you want to influence people in a certain direction, you open the space for dialogue with them. And I think by allowing Morocco to come into the AU, that gives the AU access to the Moroccan government to be able to influence them in the right direction. So I don't think that it was a wrong direction decision. You will see that, for instance, the Sahrawi People's Organization was at this conference, which means that we have not changed our support for them, because we support the right of all peoples and nations to self-determination, and that applies equally to the people of the Sahrawi Republic.
The ANC has sometimes been accused of perhaps going too soft on some countries where there are human rights violations, where leaders sometimes overstay, Mr. Motshekga. Case in point, we look at the DRC, and a country that has failed to go to elections. They were supposed to go to elections at this time, right now, December 2017, didn't happen, and this was a commitment that was made a year ago, and they said they didn't have the money at the time. And the question was, will they have the money a year later? Well, we hear still didn't happen. Mr. Kabila was in South Africa a couple of months ago. How does the ANC then approach that type of discussion, that type of dialogue with another sovereign state, where it would seem as though the leader is playing for time?
You will know that there's a principle of non-interference in the domestic affairs of other countries. So you cannot deal with a member state of the ANC, of the AU, as if you have the right to order them to do things. So persuasion becomes important, and that persuasion has got to happen within the rules of the AU. And of course, you know that in some cases South Africa has been accused as trying to be a bully, and I don't think that we want that image. We want to reserve the right to be listened to, so that we're able to persuade member states where we think that they are not pursuing the right course.
Are sanctions a way of doing that? I know that the ANC frown upon going the sanction route, saying that we are going to place sanctions on this particular country, have the people from Hamas who are part of this gathering here as well, and they've been raising this issue continuously, but yet there's no solution to it.
You see, as soon as you start to attach penalties, you are closing doors for persuasion. So in my view, sanctions should be the last resort, because once you impose sanctions and the people that you want to persuade may close doors on you and decide they don't want to talk to you anymore.
It worked for Ace.
And also with sanctions, as we have seen in other countries like Zimbabwe, you end up punishing ordinary people, men and women and children.
It worked for us, and heading to 1994, in the early 90s, the sanctions worked in South Africa's favor, and that's the reason why we have this democracy that we enjoy now.
That was an extreme case, because we were dealing with a crime against humanity. So we had to resort to the measures of
The people
last
in
resort.
Palestine are making the exact same argument. They are saying that this is an apartheid. This is an apartheid that's happening between Palestine and Israel. They accuse the Israeli state of being an apartheid state. Why can't South Africa take the same steps that were taken back in the days by foreign countries to say, let's place sanctions on Israel. Let's not do business with Israel.
I have been to Palestine. I have been to Israel. I went to meet with all the political parties and so on. And I think that the position of the ANC is a correct position so that we are able to talk to both sides, because we believe that the two-state solution should be found. And we don't want any of the two sides to close doors on us. But
Mr. Motshekga, there's also an argument that we as South Africa are regressing when it comes to human rights, especially seen in the light of our withdrawal from the Rome Statute. And again, why do we need to withdraw from that, given that as South Africa, we have absolutely no problem in ensuring human rights?
That matter served before the Committee of Parliament that I chair, and I'm sure you are aware of what the court said in that regard. And I think that it's important that when we go back to Parliament, we should take into account what our judiciary are saying, because I think the judiciary has thrown much light on the issue, and I think as Parliament we will be able to deal with the matter in a more sensible matter, and we are happy that the judiciary has expressed themselves on the matter.
We're about to link to a quick interview that Peter Ndoro had earlier this week with the then Deputy President of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa. I just want to ask you this question quickly. The issue of Marikana has always been there since, was it 2012, 2013? Now that Cyril Ramaphosa is the president of the ANC, do you think that he should go and reach out to the people of Marikana?
I think only people who want to be mischievous will continue to raise that issue, because the matter was dealt with by a judicial commission which unequivocally found nothing against the then Deputy President and now President of the ANC. But you can't rule out the fact that some people who want to politic will continue raising the issues.
But even residents of Marikana?
You know, residents may be instigated by one group or the other, but as far as I know, the Deputy President then even spoke to Comrade Willie Mandela, and on his own initiative he felt the need, because the people of Marikana, including the victims, are citizens of this country, and he is a president of the ANC, which is a leader of society, and society include all the people of South Africa, including those people. So I don't think there's a problem there.
So he should reach out?
He has to reach out
on a humane level,
on all citizens of the country, and I think he does that very well.
Well, let's go to that interview that Peter Ndoro had earlier this week with the then Deputy President of the ANC ahead of the ANC's elective conference.
Was in Mangaung, and it was the day after you'd just been elected, and you were sitting with the top six, and so much has happened since then. You had no idea what the job entailed at that stage, and I just wonder, looking back, if you knew now what you then, would you have taken the job?
Well, well, maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But as it turned out, I took the job, and it's been quite an eventful 5 years. full of a lot of activity. A lot of things have happened in the 5 years. I have personally learned a lot. I've grown quite a bit. And I would think that I've also matured quite a bit. And the great educator for me has been my movement, the African National Congress.
So what is the job as Deputy President of the ANC? You know, people at home not quite sure. What do you do?
Well, as Deputy President of the ANC, obviously I deputize the President, but we've tended to work as a collective. Being part of the top 6 and being part of the National Executive Committee and the National Working Committee has meant that we work collectively, we discuss issues, and you've seen it whenever we've had challenges in various parts of the country in the movement. We've tended to go together as the top 6, the National Working Committee, and that very much defined the sharp end of the job that one had to do. It's very much a collegiate type of involvement, which has been great.
And I know this is something that you say a lot within the ANC, that this is a collective responsibility, but you do get portfolios and you do get individual responsibilities.
Yes.
So what were some of the things that landed on your desk that you oversaw in the 5 years that come to mind?
Well, as Deputy President, the first thing you do, you head the Deployment Committee. You also head the Political Committee, which deals as an interface between the ANC and our work in Parliament. So those are the 2 key areas of involvement and work. And we saw quite a lot of activity in both. On the deployment side, it's never really headline type of stuff. We go through various areas where people need to be deployed, where we need capable people who are going to perform a number of tasks. So that was well streamlined. And the challenging one, of course, was the Political Committee, having to deal with how the ANC interfaces with what we do in the legislature, as well as what we do also in government.
All right, let's start with the Deployment Committee, because a lot of people say that part of the challenges was this Cadre deployment, and that not the best people were always deployed. How do you answer those critics? Because there have been some spectacular failures in some of these deployments.
You know, deployment is a risky business. When you deploy anyone, you never really know how they're going to turn out. But you try to do the best you can. And we've always been guided as a deployment committee by wanting to deploy the best people for the jobs that are at hand. And people throw around this term, cadre deployment. We've never really looked at it as a cadre-driven type of deployment. It's been more, have we got the best man, best woman for the job? And at times, you hit the jackpot. You deploy the best person, and they go in and they just excel. And at times, you fail.
How is the decision made? You know, how do you decide this is the person that we're going to make the CEO or the chairperson at SAA, for example?
Well, no, we go through a whole range of names, and the names are by no means just, ANC people. There are a plethora of names that are brought before us, and we go through that and we debate and discuss, and in the end, a proper decision is taken. And by the way, it's not deployment, either in the legislature and in the departments of government. It's also deployment within the ANC in terms of putting people in the right positions. Will this comrade do well in this committee? Will this comrade do well in this department within the ANC? That's what we do.
All right.
Yeah.
Before we carry on, what I had wanted to start with was a question that I asked you back then 5 years ago. And this is the first question I put to you about how you saw the future at 5 years, and this is what you told me.
The high expectations
are on the ANC. And I think our people expect that the ANC will continue to lead them and to economically transform this country and achieve their aspirations. I think that's where the expectations are. It is wrong to put expectations on any individual. And the ANC never functions like that. We are a collective leadership. And this leadership that's been chosen is a great leadership, and the president is going to lead this team that he has been given by the members extremely well, and we want to be a bold leadership and act in accordance of the resolutions that were passed at our conference. We've just had a very successful conference, and we are all hoping, and our entire membership, and indeed the country, is hoping that those resolutions will be implemented. And this is the team as led by the president, which will be doing so.
Okay, well, congratulations, and we certainly wish you the best of luck. Fast forward 5 years, do you remember that day?
Yes, I do, I do.
So much hope.
Yes.
Have you delivered?
I think by and large the ANC has done all in its power, in its capability, given the constraints that are given rise by our economy, has tried very, very much to deliver. And I think we've moved the envelope forward. We've done really well on a number of counts. I mean, the one that comes to mind is, you know, the life expectancy in our country was in the 50 years or so, I think 58 or so, it's now moved, 54, it's now moved to 64. That's a phenomenal achievement. And now we are on the cusp of introducing the national health insurance. That is going to revolutionize the delivery of health in our country. And even our ailing hospitals are actually going to move up a few notches. Next year, we're going to have the national minimum wage. That is going to lift 6.6 million workers out of poverty sort of income, where they've been earning well below 3,000 Rand. It's now going to lift them up. And I know many workers would have wanted to get, you know, much more than that. But given the balance that we had to strike, that in itself is a great achievement, and houses that have been built, and many things.
So
I
some
think
of
there's
those
positivity.
Yes, there are positive things that you've done, but some people will say record levels of unemployment.
Yes, of course.
Poverty has increased over time.
Yeah.
And they're saying that you talk about accelerating economic growth and economic policies. You've had 5 years. You were talking about that then and those expectations. So people will say then you haven't succeeded where it matters most, and that is creating jobs and reducing poverty.
Yeah, I think one needs to look at all this in context. And the given context for us is that 5 years ago, our economy was beginning to go down in terms of its growth. We were now beginning to get into the 2%, 1% of growth. What gave rise to that was the world economy. The world economy was tanking, and it is only now that the world economy is beginning to get out of the doldrums. So that was our given situation. And of course, along the way, we made our own mistakes, some mistakes here and there. And then poverty, of course, has become deeper. More people are living in poverty. And that for us, it's a serious issue that needs to be addressed. So on balance, we are saying there are areas where we have done well, and yet there are areas where we could have done better and other areas where we have not done so well. So we're not going to kid anyone, including ourselves, and think that we're smelling of all roses in all areas. There are areas where we can see green shoots of progress. We can see that there are stepping stones of something better moving forward.
So one thing that I found out recently is that you're the longest serving NEC member of the ANC. And we have to go all the way back, I think, to 1991 when you were appointed Secretary General, and your deputy was someone called Jacob Zuma at the time.
Yes, sir.
So that's an interesting dynamic, that you were his boss in a way back then. How has it been turning the tables around?
Well, this is what the ANC is all about. Actually, the president and Dr. Nkosazana Zuma and myself and one or two others are the longest serving. So we've been around for a very, very long time. And of course, the president has been there forever because he was on the NEC much, much earlier than me.
How has the party changed for you? There are a lot of people within your organization who now feel a bit disillusioned, who feel they can't be bothered to vote for the party. How has it changed since 1991 when you were SG?
Well, I think, you know, a lot has changed. In 1991, we were a party, a movement, a liberation movement that was not in government. And we got into government, and we had to navigate our role as a liberation movement, fighting a struggle, and also navigate our role as a governing party that is in government, that controls the levers of power. And that was new for us, and that brought about a number of changes for the ANC and its leaders, as would be expected. So that change did happen, and along the way, we faced a number of challenges. Challenges of a party that is now in government, a party that now has to focus on deploying people in government, and a whole number of problems then arise. And as you have to manage resources, as you have to manage people, a lot of things that tempt you to do things in a particular way come about. And these are pains of being in government that we have had to go through. But the good thing with the ANC is each time it has encountered problems and challenges, it has had the ability and the transparency to talk about them. So we've spoken about the travails, the challenges, as well as the victories and the good parts.
But talking about it and doing something isn't the same thing. Otherwise, had you done things over time as you saw them, you'd still be in charge of Johannesburg, Pretoria, and Nelson Mandela Bay. What went wrong? Was it the leadership that failed to read the signs and take corrective action? Have you lost control of the party?
We have not lost control of the party. The ANC, as it went through, navigated its way through all this, along the way, and as the Secretary General did say in his diagnostic input at the policy conference, did put it clearly on the table that yes, we have lost our leadership of society. Our people have always relied on the African National Congress to provide leadership, and we have lost that urge. And having lost it, and we now know where we have gone wrong and where what our weaknesses are, and we claiming back that ground. This whole year has been a process of seeing how best we can claim back that ground. Our people now know that we know, and they hear us saying we are serious about what? Renewing the ANC, uniting the ANC, because along the way we became factionalized, disunited. So we are aware of that, and now we're going to unite ourselves, and this conference gives us this perfect opportunity.
Today, in a court in Bloemfontein, we've got ANC versus ANC.
Yes.
And that's just one of many court battles.
Yes.
How did you get to a point where you couldn't talk in-house and that your own members had to go to courts to deal with stuff at home?
Yes, this happens. And for me, it shows a clear demonstration of the love that our members have for their movement. That they say, we want to be in rather than be out. We want to be part of this process of renewing the ANC. And one of the proposals that are going to conference in terms of constitutional amendments is we should create a forum, a platform, a structure through which our members, rather than rush to court, will go to the structure that will be a dispute resolution structure. And it is actually quite interesting that the judge in another court case, which was launched just a week ago, actually admonished ANC members. And he said, you know, the modern thing now with disputes all over is to try and find a resolution for your disputes before you come to us to court. And we are hoping that we will cement that type of culture, that ANC members, ANC structures should first seek to resolve problems. Now, I see this in positive light, that our people love their movement so much. So what we need to do is to turn them inwards so that the problems are resolved inside the movement.
What it does sound like is that they're not listening to you. You say, let's resolve it internally, let's sit down and talk, and they're not even bothering to do that. And that's why I'm asking whether you've lost some control, because if they're not listening to you, how is there control from the leadership?
Now, you see, I think the message has been going out, and you may not know, many disputes, many problems are resolved within the ANC before they get out. And it's only a few that get out, and you're looking at the tip of the iceberg. Below this iceberg, lots of problems are resolved internally, lots of processes are engaged or embarked upon to resolve problems. So this forum that we're going to create, this structure, is actually going to help a great deal more to resolve problems inside.
I'm going to ask you a question I asked the Treasurer General, and that was about the political killings. Again, something we haven't seen in the ANC, and we wonder who's doing the killing, why it's happening, and why you've been unable to deal with it.
Well, I think, as far as I'm concerned, there is some hidden hand that is involved in, perpetuating these political killings. And because people who are targeted are ANC members, where there are either problems or challenges, and people get knocked off. And now the other problem, of course, is that the police themselves have not been able to fathom, the causes, but better still, who is behind all these killings. So my take is that there is some hidden hand. And one day we are going to find out who exactly is behind these killings, because all of us as ANC members reject and condemn these killings. They are not doing us any favors. And this is what it should be all about resolving disputes.
The people on the ground and through the Morani Commission are saying that this is a battle for positions. So these are ANC people killing ANC people.
Well, you see, I don't know whether in the end one can say, these are directly ANC people. And they seem to arise when there are problems and challenges. And yes, one of the things is this battle for positions, battle for resources, and we still need to get to the depth of this and find out exactly who is behind these killings, because they seem to be very systematic, they seem to be well planned, and there seems to be a method through which these are done. People just come into your home, bump you off, and they walk away. There must be a way in which we can find out.
In that clip, we saw the six of you sitting together, and you described it as this great team that's going to be working, being led by President Zuma. And my question to you is trying to get into the workings of the top six. How do you work together? Has it been cordial? Has it been a good working relationship? And then how does that flow into other bodies such as the NEC?
It's been a good working relationship over the 5-year period. We meet every Monday, and we discuss all manner of things. And obviously people want to know, do you fight, do you differ, do you argue, and so forth. It's been all cordial. We only differed once, and where it became public over an issue we differed over, which was a cabinet reshuffle. But other than that, it's been extremely cordial, and we meet, we chat together, we spend hours and hours working together. And after that, obviously much of what we discuss is then filtered through the National Working Committee, which then picks up some of the discussions we have, and in most of the cases we take recommendations to the National Working Committee. The National Working Committee discusses matters, and those that it cannot immediately resolve are then pushed through to the National Executive Committee, where robust discussions and debates then take place.
And it's interesting you say this, but you know, when we read through Twitter, when we read through newspapers, we hear what you're saying about each other and to each other. And it doesn't spell a cordial environment. It seems like it's split in half, and you guys are about to kill each other.
Hardly ever. No, of course there are perceptions. I mean, you know, in an entity like the officials, there'll always be perceptions about who is on whose side and so forth. And it's hardly ever like that. It really is hardly ever like that. I mean, the key drivers of things in the working committee are the Secretary General and the President. They bring issues to the table, we discuss them, and we also deal with committee reports. And then there will be stories that are spread. This one said this, and most of the time, it is hardly ever the case.
All right, so I'm glad you talk about this collective leadership all the time, because then you can take responsibility together for some of the things that haven't worked out. Let's talk about state capture.
Yes.
It could not have happened if, as a collective, you're properly managing the country and that the party is properly instructing or giving guidance to government. How could it have happened under such great leadership?
Well, you see, the issues of state capture really only became so much more evident much later. And people always say, I mean, didn't you know what was happening in Eskom? And frankly, we didn't, because Eskom was supposed to be running well. It was building 3 power stations, almost all at one go, and it was when we started having load shedding, and then when the war room was set up, and then we started asking questions, that we started picking up that things may not be as well as they should, and that's when the 3 or so executives were then suspended, and then a lot of things started coming out. And it was through the emails as well that a lot of these shenanigans then spilled out into the open, that nearly everyone then became more fully aware. Media people have been saying, well, we were reporting, we were saying this, but I also say, yes, you were reporting, but the full extent of it all was not so evident.
DP, this scares me because you have a deployed minister who's the shareholder on the taxpayers' behalf.
Yes.
And the minister's job is to make sure that these things don't happen.
Yes.
That's all they do all day.
The minister has oversight. The minister has oversight, and oversight means that they will look at sort of governance issues, and they never really go into the entrails, into the deeper workings of the organization, and the board is supposed to also play a particular role. But be that as it may, we now know. And now that this has all spilled out into the open, action is now going to be taken, and it is being taken. Parliamentary committees are working on it. Now the Commission of Inquiry is now going to be appointed.
We're going to take a break just now, but just before that, on the back of that, does that mean that there are systemic issues about how government oversees its state-owned enterprises and looks at making sure that things are okay, that need to be addressed?
Yes, most definitely. I mean, this is part of the work that the interministerial committee that I chair has been looking at, to implement the Presidential Review Committee's report on state-owned enterprises. And we're looking at the way these state-owned enterprises should work. We're looking at how they should be controlled in terms of ownership. So it's systemic. Once we put that all right, and we are going to, things are going to be a lot better, because that will also give us the ability to deploy your best brains into these state-owned enterprises and have a much tighter oversight role on how they should be functioning.
We were talking a little bit before just about the state-owned enterprises and the state that they're in. And a lot of people at home are quite disillusioned that South African Airways, national airline, is in so much trouble, needs so much bailing out. The SABC, Eskom, it was chatted about. And I just wonder, how on earth can we be confident that this current ANC can fix a mess that they've presided over?
Yes, it is fixable. All these things are fixable. Now it's all spilled out into the open. We now know what the ailments are in all these state-owned enterprises. And now, we know what needs to be done. We know we've got to deploy the right people to oversee, to run all these entities,
As
the
you
right
speak,
boards.
It sounds like a conversation I could have had with you 5 years ago.
Yes, sir.
And so the fear is always that you guys say the right things,
Yes.
but never really quite deliver.
And that's precisely what I'm trying to get to. Through this committee, interministerial committee I'm talking about, which I head, we now beginning to look more closely at what now needs to be done. Because we've had systemic problems and challenges, we're now going to put all that right so that you have, if you like, a fail-proof type of system where you will be able to know exactly what needs to be done if something fails. And boards are important, choosing the right people, and making sure that the governance processes are good, the management structures are good, so that you limit as much as possible temptations for people to do strange things, wrong things. And I mean, when you look at what was happening at Eskom, that's where you really see that the wheels had come off in as far as governance is concerned, proper processes and procedures are concerned. Now we know, and we're going to put that right, because these are important assets of the nation, and we want to have them managed properly.
Another important asset is your employees, government employees. They donate or they contribute to their pensions.
Yes.
And then the PIC picks up these pensions and invests them on their behalf in companies like Steenhoff.
Yes.
And they've lost billions.
Yes.
And again, how do we, and we look to you as the custodians of our people, how do we trust you to protect us from such happenings?
Well, you see, we've got to have an overarching type of approach. I mean, what has happened in Steenhoff is deplorable. It is, a system that has really gone horribly, horribly wrong. We should never have had a situation like that where greed becomes the key driver of what people want to do and benefit from. And corruption has always been seen as a public sector type of problem. But now we can see that in the private sector, corruption is quite rife. And we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg with Steenhoff. And that is where we say those who are involved in Steenhoff, much as it may look like it's a private company, its operations, its business, impacts on a lot of people. There must be investigation, there must be arrests, and there must be jail time for people who are perpetrating these acts, because they impact on the lives of government employees, pensioners, and indeed the public. So our task as a regulator, which is government, is to make sure that we protect the public, we protect the people of South Africa. It is deplorable. And this is what then feeds into this notion about South Africa, that this corruption is so rife, but it's always been seen like it's only in the state, and yet it is in the private sector as well.
You've sat on both sides of this,
yes.
Public sector, private sector. Are there conversations taking place to talk about things like corruption? Because for people at home, we watch and we just hear stories about corruption on both sides of the equation. How do we deal with it?
The main focus has always been in government. That, you know, when people look at us in government, they always say, oh, they are a corrupt bunch of people. We've never really focused on corruption that takes place in the private sector. The Chief Justice the other day at the university was saying, we never hear about corruption in the private sector and what happens to those who are caught. And we are saying there must be equal treatment. And the media must focus on both. We must be able to, you know, reveal everything that's happening, because it is when we reveal what is happening that we are then able to correct the challenges and the problems that are there.
You talk about jail time, private sector.
Yes.
Are we going to see the same in the public sector? Because the perception, again, is that the higher up you're in the food chain, the less likely it is that you will go to jail. We see people are saying there's this lethargy by the authorities to go after people that are specifically named in things like the Gupta emails.
Yeah, and my take is, you know, we have got a constitution, the best constitution in the world, people say, which has an important value, which is rule of law. There must be rule of law. And rule of law means that those who have done wrong against the people of South Africa must be followed up without fear or favor or prejudice. They must be taken to book. They must be accountable. They must be responsible for the things that they have done wrong. Because when you do something wrong and you do it intentionally against the people of the country, for me, that is almost like treason, because you're acting against the interests of the public. So you must be followed up. And therefore, that's why I've been saying the justice system must follow
but you don't
all those who are responsible for these things.
You don't have to wait that far, though. You set up something called the Integrity Committee.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of people are thinking, what does this committee do? Do they just sit and have tea and just play golf? What do they do?
Well, they don't play golf. Yes, tea they have, but they've also over time deliberated on a number of cases where they've made recommendations that, you know, in this case, this is what we recommend. In this case, this is what you recommend. And they are not a disciplinary entity. And some of the people have been referred to the disciplinary process. So the challenge for all of us, both in the public sector, in the private sector, and in the African National Congress, is that we must highlight the issue of accountability. We must highlight the issue of taking responsibility for the wrong things that we do.
But you're not doing it, though.
Well, you see...
2010, you said this, when you were setting it up, more urgent steps should be taken to protect the image of the organization and enhance its standing in society by ensuring, amongst others, that urgent action is taken to deal with public officials, leaders, and members of the ANC who face damning allegations and improper conduct. That doesn't mean you've got to wait until they're guilty.
No, it doesn't mean that. But you see, the ANC is a living organism. It's a living organization which learns from some of its weaknesses, some of its mistakes, and throughout history, we've been getting better and better at doing things. And all I can say to you is watch this space. Watch this space and you will see the ANC doing what people often, you know, dismiss. They often say, you always say you will self-correct. And of course, we are going to correct ourselves where we've had weaknesses, where we've had problems. And the good thing with the ANC is that we never, ever hide our weaknesses or our problems. We confront them head on, and we then look for remedies. Now, this conference we're going to is going to do precisely that. It's going to ensure that the ANC emerges out of the conference united. It emerges out of the conference renewed. It emerges out of the conference stronger than what it was in the past 5 years. This is a conference that is going to reinvigorate the African National Congress. You watch the ANC after this conference.
All right. But the ANC may come out stronger, but will the SACP and COSATU be with you? Because as a union man yourself, yes, champion of the NUM and architect of COSATU, it must pain you to see what's happened now. That COSATU is a shadow of its former self, and that the SACP stood against the ANC in a recent by-election. That's unheard of.
Well, you see, all of us as components of the alliance, the 4 entities, we all realize that we need each other. We all realize that the alliance is important, not only in each other's lives, but in the life of South Africa. That this country still needs the alliance to perfect and finish, as it were, the task and the mandate we were given of building a democratic national society in South Africa. And we can only do it when we work together as an alliance. Now, COSATU went through its own challenges, but it's getting out of those weaknesses. It's becoming stronger, and we can see that it's getting back to a mobilizing COSATU, and we're going to see its unions become stronger and stronger. The party took a resolution at their conference, their congress, and they said, yes, they're toying around with the idea of standing for elections on their own, but they're going to have a discussion with us. Metsimahulu was, I would say, you know, almost like a freak type of event. We're going to get together around a table and discuss. They would like to stand on their own as a party, but that does not mean that the alliance is over.
So COSATU, we've seen Zweli Zimbabwe and his band of unions, they've gone.
Yes.
Is there any way you'll ever bring them back?
You know, things that happened in the working class can sometimes surprise you, because working organizations always find that they are stronger when they are united. And history has always taught us that when workers are united, they are able to achieve a lot more. I don't know what will happen in future, but it is a good thing for workers to be united. Maybe in time to come, you may see a different type of equation emerging, and history will yield a better result than we had in the past.
National Development Plan.
Yes, sir.
We're almost a third of the way for its timeline for where we had hoped would be.
Yeah.
And a lot of people still don't get it. They don't understand it. There's this book, this document. If you're lucky, some people have got to the summary, executive summary. How do you make it happen? And as I said, we've gone through a lot of years already. We should be so much further down the line. And this is your baby.
Well, the National Development Plan, you know, some people don't quite understand it in terms of how it's being implemented. The government, having adopted the National Development Plan, then translated it into the medium-term strategic framework, which guides our work in government. So the work that we do in government is aimed at implementing the National Development Plan. The National Health Insurance, for instance, is embedded in the National Development Plan. Much of what we're doing in infrastructure is also embedded in the National Development Plan. So people tend to want to see the National Development Plan as another animal out there. It is being driven through what we do in government, and we've conceptualized it as the medium-term strategic framework, where we look at various outcomes.
But how do I, as a SMME owner, own the NDP and drive the NDP? What guidance is there for me in my little world to be able to engage with this thing?
See, as an SMME owner, the NDP talks about the power of small and medium enterprises to drive our economy, to create more jobs. And that's precisely what we are now doing through the various other efforts that we are doing through the Pakisas. For instance, we launched a Pakisa on the oceans economy. And much of what is being done, and we've got 70 billion rand, which has been attracted by the work we're doing through the oceans economy. And the oceans economy is inspired by the National Development Plan. And what is it doing? It's already helping a number of small and medium enterprises to be created, to be strengthened, and to get up and going. So people need to look at what we are doing on a holistic basis rather than on a piecemeal basis. For instance, as part of all this, we came up with the 9-point plan. Some of the things the 9-point plan spoke about, and even the DA does not even understand this. The things that we spoke about was make sure that we no longer have load shedding. That has been achieved. We spoke about the national minimum wage. That has been achieved. To continue driving infrastructure, that is being achieved. To focus on the oceans economy, that is now being driven. 70 billion rand has been brought into the economy. So many of the things that we are about are happening because of a plan, and we're not doing anything outside a plan. And all we are now also focusing on is we now need to move our economy to recovery. We want to make our economy recover because we don't want our economy to continue being a 1% growth economy. This economy deserves to be at 5% and even more.
I'm going to take you back to 1997.
Yes, sir.
You had more hair, and it was almost like an afro, a little bit younger.
Yes.
And you were standing next to Madiba.
Yes.
And Madiba was telling the nation that you were going to the private sector.
Yes.
Did you quit or were you deployed?
I was actually deployed. Madiba is the one who said, you know, the challenges that are facing our country are not only in government, they're also in the private sector. And he had had a conversation with Dr. Matlana, and they were good friends. And during the course of that conversation, you know, things were said, and then the idea was floated. And I said, it's not a bad thing to go out into the private sector. And one of the things that really appealed to me then was how one can assist small and medium enterprises. And I must say that having gone into the private sector, I have been instrumental in forming an entity called Black Umbrellas, which today is helping more than 1,127 businesses that have created 10,000 jobs. And I use that as a great example of what one can do, or what we can do even at national level, to assist small and medium enterprises. Because many of these enterprises that have been assisted through this entity that, you know, we formed did not exist. Now they exist, and some of them are turning over. 2 businesses are turning over 152 million rand. And these are 100% black-owned and managed businesses. That, to me, gives me the greatest joy and pride.
All right. So, you know, there will be debates about whether it was that you didn't become president before Thabo Mbeki. But I guess that the question might be, do you have any regrets leaving the chance to be in government much earlier? Because you were SG back then. Yeah. And it's quite likely that you would have become president much sooner, maybe even after Thabo Mbeki. And a lot of people are saying that, you know, this country may be different had you been president a lot earlier.
I have no regrets. My life has, you know, followed a number of phases. And that was an important phase that I went through, getting me into the private sector, understanding how the private sector works, also understanding how the economy works. for me, that was an important interlude, if you like, of getting me to understand all aspects. And if you like, I've been in the trade union movement, I've been in the private sector, and I've been in politics, constitution making, and all that has contributed to mold who I am, to form who I am. And it has taught me lots of lessons. So I have no regrets, and I'm forever ready for the next deployment, where I'll be able, hopefully, in a very humble way, in whatever small way I can, to serve our people. That's all that drives me.
All right, so you understand business, the pressures they're under, and their wishes and needs, and they keep saying the same things. Policy uncertainty.
Yes.
Is this something, let's say you do become president, is this something that you're going to fix? And why weren't you not able to give that certainty as deputy president?
Well, we've faced a number of issues and challenges, and the good thing that has happened in the ensuing period is that we've developed a rather good working relationship with the private sector, where we meet and where we talk honestly amongst ourselves, and where they raise issues about policy certainty, the regulatory environment and all that. And we've listened to them. But similarly, they have also listened to us. For instance, they wanted us to have one center where all their issues would be resolved. If you form a company, you must immediately know that it is at one center where you'll get your permits, your licenses for whatever. And we've responded positively, and we've formed these centers which we are spreading around the country. And that, you know, stands us in good stead. We also raised the issue of youth unemployment with them. And we said, guys, you've got so many companies throughout the country. Why don't you open up spaces in your companies to employ young people, either through internships or learnerships? 1 million opportunities are now going to be open for young people to get into those. So it's been one hand washing the other. And there are still a number of issues that we have to address. The policy uncertainty issue is still there. They want certainty in the mining industry, in a number of others, and we are going to address those. We are going to make sure that we buckle down and address, because what we want, what we are about, is to encourage investment. We want our companies to do well, to make profits, because when they make profit and they are not too constrained, then we are able to tax them. And the taxes then fuel everything that we need to do.
We are starting to wrap up our conversation, and I want to come back to the party now, because this is actually the main sort of reason we brought you here. And you're going to be 106 in January, and that's a long history. You're going to have to pull this party together, whatever position that you occupy. And then yet we hear people like Makosi Koza who say this party can't be fixed. Whenever we've tried to speak, we've been shut down, we've been threatened, and we don't feel safe. How do you change that culture so that people can speak up, people can whistleblow, in fact, and can come to you and say, you know, I've been offered a job by a family, and it's a serious problem, and that things happen, because when it doesn't happen, people lose faith.
Well, we've often said that we can self-correct. We know what our problems are, we know what our challenges are, and we know what we need to do to fix some of the problems and the challenges we face. And the ANC requires patience. You need to have a level and a dosage of patience to be able to change the way things are. And right now, we are in positive mode. We are in the best mode that you can ever find, because we know what our problems are. And as I was saying earlier, this conference is decisive, because it is a conference which is calling us to renew the ANC. And as it were, all of us who are going to the conference are going to be renewing our vows. We're going to be renewing our movement. We're going to be shedding all the things that are wrong, that may have sipped into the body politic, if you like, of our movement. So we're going to emerge stronger, and I pity people who give up. When you're in the ANC, you should never give up. You should be consistent, persistent, and have a dosage of long suffering, and things do come right. And right now, we are just at that moment where things are going to start going very well for the African National
so
Congress. We built a very good foundation.
So we won't see stalwarts meeting on their own, war vets claiming to be more legitimate than the other. Yes. The Youth League united with the Mother Body, and everybody, and the Women's League all talking the same voice.
This is what we're aiming for. We're aiming for unity. Unity in practice, unity in real life, but unity of purpose. This conference is about obliterating factions, obliterating these divisions that we have had in the African National Congress. This conference is about uniting all of us behind good policies, leadership that will take the movement forward. Because we now know that disunity actually causes us votes. When we are disunited, then people walk away from us. They no longer see us as the leader of society. So we now know we have experienced that bitter pill, and that tells us that we must unite as much as we possibly can, but unite around principles, unite around the values of the African National Congress with a view of making the ANC strong. We don't have to be friends, but we have to be comrades. And the word comrade means that you are my comrade in arms, hand in hand, we walk together and we go to solve the problems of our country so that our country can be a better place in which all of us as South Africans can live. That's what it is all about.
All right, I'm also sort of coming back full circle to where we started, because when I asked you in Mangaung, what is your expectation, what do you hope to do as an individual? You put up the shield of it's a collective. But I'm going to ask you now, because you want people to trust you.
Yes.
And so I'm going to ask you now, what can you say, hand on heart, I, Cyril Ramaphosa, even though I was part of this collective, there were things I could have done better as an individual, and this is what I'm going to do to fix it?
Well, clearly in life, as it is also in our movement, there are things that even I, Cyril Ramaphosa, could have done better. There are things that I could have focused more attention on. And there are things that I have also reflected on. And now, moving forward, if the membership of the African National Congress continues to invest their trust and their hope in me, I'm going to try everything I can to be a lot better, to execute the mandate that I will have been given. And it all really depends on the trust, the confidence that the membership of the ANC will have in me as a leader, and will have on all of us who will be elected as leaders. And it is for us to humble ourselves, to know that through humility we've been given this task and this mandate, and we must go and execute it. That is what I am hoping I will be able to do beyond this conference. So it is very, very humbling to be put in a position where you take responsibility to lead other people, to actually execute a mandate which can change lives and make the lives of our people better.
All right, that was Cyril Ramaphosa, the new president of the ANC, a couple of days before the announcement. So at that stage, he was deputy president, speaking to my colleague Peter Ndoro. And he was talking about unity, and we can already attest that he's facing his first challenges to unity, working with a team with some members who are seen to be diametrically opposed against him during the run-up to that presidential election. And now even claims about one of the positions, 68 or 63 missing votes. That's all going down at Nasrec. And we'll take you live to Nasrec once more, and we'll wrap up the news shortly. We'll take a short break.
Okay, come and tell.
For your weekly dose of art and entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
It's 8 o'clock Central African time. You're watching the SABC's Prime News, coming to you live from Johannesburg. Good evening to you. I'm Peter Ndoro.
I'm Francis Hurd. A very good evening to you. These are the top stories.
Newly elected ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa and his collective have committed to serving the organization and the public with humility and distinction. He made his first public appearance since his election at Nasrec, south of Johannesburg, early this evening.
The ANC Women's League has lambasted its own party, saying the ANC has failed women by not having enough females in the party's top 6 leadership posts.
Now, on our top story this evening, community members in Soweto say that they are very happy that for the first time in history of the 105-year history of the African National Congress, a person from their township was chosen.
Soweto, one of the largest and historic locations in the country. Yesterday, Cyril Ramaphosa, a Soweto boy, elected as the new ANC leader at the 54th National Elective Conference of the ANC. Today, he made his first appearance after being elected leader.
Cyril Ramaphosa, a township boy who grew up playing on these dusty streets. Soweto is the largest township on the continent. Yesterday, it saw one of its own take on the most powerful position in the ruling party. And the announcement was music to the ears.
I felt very happy when we got the result and heard that our son Cyril has won. I've known him as a child. He's respectful. He took his studies serious. We lived with him. My husband knew him very well. He used to come and take my husband's books to read, and that made my husband very happy. He also told Cyril that books will take him far.
Today, the man himself made his first appearance after being elected to the leadership position.
Our conference is going so well. Many doomsayers had said that this conference was going to collapse, this conference was not going to go on, and we've proven once again, maybe for the millionth time in our 105 years history of existence, that the ANC is able to rise even above its own strength. And here we were able to demonstrate that the ANC family, this great organization of our people, wants to emerge out of this conference united, renewed, and stronger than it was when we came to conference.
Should the ANC win the 2019 election, he will be the first president to emerge from this township. Ntlantla Khatlani, SABC News, Nasrec, Johannesburg.
Someone's not happy. The ANC Women's League disappointed that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was not elected president, and said today in a very open press briefing that the ANC has in fact gone backwards given the number of women in the top 6 leadership posts.
Yeah, the League's National Committee was addressing the media on the sidelines of the party's 54th conference, saying that Dlamini Zuma was reduced to being just an ex-wife.
The number of women in the ANC top 6 has gone down from 2 to 1. The Women's League believes Deputy Secretary General J.C. Duarte retained her position because she was up against another woman. They say she too would have lost.
In the 105 years of the ANC as an organization and a leader of society, we feel the ANC has failed the women of South Africa.
It believes Dr. Dlamini Zuma was unfairly judged.
Let us also thank Comrade Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma for selflessly availing herself. She was insulted, her credentials were trampled upon, and reduced to being an ex-wife.
The Women's League wants to use its majority in the party and society to continue the fight, but it doesn't take well to criticism that it lost because it abandoned other women in the race, like Lindiwe Sisulu for deputy president. The League says in spite of its misgivings, it supports the ANC democratic processes and it will support Cyril Ramaphosa as the new president. Ntakwana Ngadani, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, David Mabuza is the newly elected deputy president of the ANC, but who is Mabuza?
Let's take a look at his political career.
Mabuza elected deputy president of the ANC, occupying a bigger position than the one he held before. Mabuza was born in August 1960. He matriculated at Kumbula High School and studied at Mgwenya College of Education and later at the University of South Africa. Mabuza's involvement in politics started as a secretary of Azania Student Organization, Azaso, chairperson of NUSA, treasurer of FEP, a coordinator of the NECC, chairperson of SATU, amongst others. Mabuza served as an MEC for Education in Mpumalanga. He has been the ANC Mpumalanga chairperson since 2008, MEC for Housing, Member of Parliament, MEC for Agriculture and Land Administration. Mabuza is said to have played a role in 2007 when he supported Jacob Zuma's successful campaign to become president of the ANC. He supported Zuma at the ANC National Elective Conference in Polokwane. Later, Zuma appointed him Mpumalanga Premier in 2009. The Mpumalanga Premier is alleged to have countless links to alleged corruption. There are also allegations that Mabuza is behind multiple political killings in his province of Mpumalanga. Mabuza was also reportedly behind the arrest of a journalist who published articles about a man who claimed he was hired by province officials to be an assassin. In 2010, 14 million in cash was allegedly stolen from his house. One of the local newspapers reported at the time. However, South African Police Services Organized Crime Unit in Mpumalanga said only 1,200 was stolen. In 2015, another newspaper reported that Mabuza was allegedly poisoned and was forced to take 2 months leave from his role. In 2014, he started the David Mabuza Foundation, which offers educational funding and builds houses for the poor. In 2016, Mabuza lost a 10 million defamation lawsuit against ANC veteran Matthews Posa. He claimed Posa had distributed an intelligence report that alleged he was an apartheid spy, the mastermind behind the so-called Unity candidate. He called on thousands of voting members and branches across the country to cast their vote for Unity.
Today you are coming for Unity, all of you.
He was seen by political analysts as an antithesis of what Cyril Ramaphosa represents. How the two will work together is anyone's guess. Mabuza is reported to have snapped gatherings addressed by Ramaphosa in Mpumalanga, saying he was not invited. He has been described as a kingmaker going into the conference.
Comrade David Mabuza is the new Deputy President of the African National Congress.
Mabuza has now been elected the Deputy President of the ANC at the organization's 54th National Conference. Lehana Tsotetsi, SABC News.
All right, we're introducing you to some of the top 6. This position possibly in doubt because of the missing votes, and there's been meetings all day at Nasrec. The recently elected Secretary General Ace Magashule is, of course, the longest-serving chairperson of the ANC in the Free State, but his recent re-election a week ago in Paris was not smooth.
Yes, some aggrieved branches took the matter to the High Court for redress.
Elias Sokhobelo Magashule was born in Tumahole Township in Paris. Magashule played an active role in the now famous Val Triangle riots, where he was forced to go into exile in 1985. His political activism forced him to skip the country and live in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Tanzania, before returning home after the ANC unbanning in 1990. Prior to being the Free State Premier in 2009, he was previously overlooked 3 times for the position. Between 1997 and 2004, the ANC deployed him to Parliament following a bitter power struggle between him and the then Premier Musiwa Lekota. He was also the People's Choice in 1994 for premiership, but the provincial leadership decided he was still too young. Magashule has also been accused of his close proximity with the Gupta family, having given them a Friday farm in the Free State. His leadership style in the Free State has also been questioned. Analysts believe that the Secretary General position is a full-time job.
If we look at the position of Ace Magashule as Secretary General, definitely he will have to relinquish his position as chairperson of the ANC in the Free State and as Premier. And that also opens up another question as to who will come up, because we know that he has been challenged by the former Mayor Manyoni in the Free State. And I strongly believe that somebody like Premier Ace Magashule would like to see somebody who is very close to him taking over.
Community members reacted differently to Magashule's appointment to the highest office in the ANC.
This movement was long overdue because people were unhappy with the current status quo of the ANC in the Free State?
No, I don't know anything about that. I don't follow the news or the politics. I'm very happy about Mr. Magashule, as he was our premier, and our kids got bursaries from him, so I'm very happy as he's from Free State as well.
For now, it remains to be seen as to who will replace Magashule in both positions of the ANC chairman and the premier of the Free State. Ishmael Mudiba, SABC News, Bloemfontein.
The Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, AMCU, has called the election of Cyril Ramaphosa as president of the ANC a threat to radical economic and social transformation.
According to the union, this will lead to further attacks on the rights to strike, while policies will be in favor of mine bosses. Union leader Joseph Matunjwa further criticized the composition of the top six, saying it confirms the depth of patriarchal practices within the ANC. They further doubt that unemployment, poverty and inequality will be addressed.
Right, let's catch you up with what's been happening on the business front. The local currency has lost a little bit of the gains that it made yesterday following Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa's ANC presidency win.
The rand had gained as much as 4% before the election, hitting a 9-month high of 12.53 against the dollar.
Demand for South African bonds rose as market players anticipated a Cyril Ramaphosa win yesterday, and that trend continued today, with yields on the 10-year South African government bond coming down. While the rand made substantial gains yesterday, those tapered today somewhat, with the currency hovering between 12.70 and 12.80 against the US dollar for much of the session. Equities markets were up today, with financial counters lending significant support to the all-share index. Market euphoria aside, many headwinds for the country remain.
I think the markets in general will benefit from this announcement. Our economy should benefit from this announcement. I think it's still early stages. We've still got to worry about whether Moody's wants to downgrade us. We've still got to worry about the budget and the shortfall in the tax that will only come out in February. So it's still really early days.
Volatility in the local currency is expected to continue. This as market players become cautious about those who make up the ANC top six, who are a composition of two different factions. Markets also seek to take a closer look at the members of the ANC's new NEC. This may provide some insight into the type of policy stances the collective will take. But for now, President Jacob Zuma remains the head of state, and it is under his administration that any current ANC policy can be implemented. Nompemelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Sports Live, Saturday and Sundays at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're still watching the SABC's Prime News. Convicted murderer and former Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius has filed an application to the Constitutional Court seeking to overturn a higher prison sentence that was handed down to him by the Appeals Court last month.
Pistorius will appeal the increased sentence of 13 years and 5 months. Well, the Supreme Court more than doubled the first term, the charge, from 6 years for shooting dead his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp, on Valentine's Day in 2013. Pistorius had originally been found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 5 years in jail. That conviction was increased to murder by the Supreme Court in December 2015, and his sentence extended to 6 years by trial judge Thokozile Masipa in July last year.
Convicted Dutch weapons smuggler Guus Quintenhoven has been granted bail of 1 million rand in Cape Town Magistrates Court.
The 75-year-old Dutch national was arrested on the 8th of December in an upmarket suburb in Fresnay after Interpol issued a warrant for his arrest. Quintenhoven's bail conditions include reporting to the Sea Point police station every 2 hours during weekdays and being under house arrest over the weekends.
The court found that he was not entirely forthcoming about his business interests in and outside of South Africa. He was convicted and sentenced in absentia in a Dutch court to 19 years in prison in April for his involvement in war crimes of former Liberian President Charles Taylor. The defense earlier submitted that he is chronically ill and has a life expectancy of only about 3 years.
All right, let's get back to the ANC's race that has now been run to Limpopo, where Cyril Ramaphosa's family has described him as the unifying force in their family.
Ramaphosa has roots in his village of Kalava, 25 kilometers northwest of Thohoyandou. The news of his election was met by jubilation by villagers and former schoolmates.
This is Kalava village, known for its plush avocado lychees and timber farms. Newly elected ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa has his roots here. His father Samuel was born and bred here. Ramaphosa's family is popular in this village. He regularly visits the village to reconnect with his friends and family. Ramaphosa recently spent his time here during his campaign trail in the province. His father Samuel married his mother Edmund here in the late 40s. Friends and family have described the country deputy president as a blessing to the nation.
I'm very much excited because I know he's going to take South Africa somewhere to the top level, because I know he's a hard worker. As I know him, I've got no doubt of that.
Because the announcement came a little bit later at 5 o'clock, but immediately before 6 o'clock, the whole yard were full with people, and they were enjoying, celebrating, singing. Everything was right. And the Kalava people, they are so happy for this.
Ramaphosa matriculated from Papuri High School in Sibasa in 1971. His classmates say he was a brilliant and politically conscious student who excelled in English and history.
But you could sense that he was politically minded. Most of the things that he did were political in nature. Although, of course, it was the first year, his first year here. But the second year, he showed his colors that he was interested in developing people along political lines.
Ramaphosa garnered massive support from ANC branches in Vembe. Rutendo Boboli for SABC News in Kalava.
All right, so
that's a wrap for now. It feels like there's this question mark hanging in the air,
like
and that's because we can't tell you.
Something to do.
I know, but we can't tell you what happened with those votes that are still under dispute at Nasrec, and this whole leadership question I don't think will be resolved until then. We basically know who the top six are, but there's a possibility of just one change.
Yes, so you can go to bed tonight, but keep your phone on. That's all we're saying.
And we'll be back with you same time, same place, tomorrow from Nasrec or here, depending how it all pans out. Till then.
Good night.
Greetings. We're still expecting partly cloudy skies over SADC with isolated to scattered thunder showers over most parts. But for most parts of South Africa, we will see partly cloudy skies from the interior going to the northern parts. For tonight, the southern parts will remain clear. And going to the interior of Namibia, isolated thunder showers going to Zimbabwe and most parts of Mozambique going to 60% chance of thunder showers over the southern parts of Malawi. Tomorrow, we are expecting up to 80% chance of thunder showers stretching into Mozambique, some parts of Zimbabwe and the southern parts of Malawi. So if you will be in those regions, please do have your umbrella with, and the northern parts of South Africa as well. Going to Botswana and Namibia, the southern parts of South Africa will remain clear to partly cloudy skies. And over the far southern parts of Madagascar, up to 80% chance of thunder showers forecast, and severe thunderstorms is one of the possibilities. A maximum of 31 is forecast for DR tomorrow, and Bloemfontein 29 for Pretoria. If you will be in Polokwane, a maximum of 25, 24, City of Durban, Port Elizabeth sunny at 25 and 29 in Cape Town, Springbok, a maximum of 37 for tomorrow, and a warning of high fire danger, Uppington at a maximum of 38, thunder showers forecast 31 with 30% chance of showers in Windhoek. Going to Gaborone, a maximum of 38, 40 is your maximum in Bulawayo, and 38 in Beitbridge, Maputo at 29 degrees, Mahajanga at 32 and 27 in Fiaranzo. Over the central interior, we're still expecting up to 80% chance of thunder showers, mostly over the southern parts of DRC, where we're expecting partly cloudy skies to 80% chance of thunder showers, and the interior of Angola as well. Going to the northern parts, isolated thunder showers, and the northern parts of DRC, few clouds to clear skies can be expected. Kampala covered with 30% chance of showers. And moving further to tomorrow, we're still expecting similar conditions, up to 80% chance of thunder showers to severe thunderstorms over the interior of Angola. Going to the northern parts, temperatures will be warm to hot with 30% chance of showers around Kigali. Going to the eastern parts of DRC, up to 80% chance of thunder showers and severe thunderstorms, and around Lilongwe as well. So please do take note of that if you will be in those regions. Maximum of 21 in Kigali, 31 for Kinshasa, 40 in Bangui, and 20 in Addis Ababa. Sunny skies forecast for tomorrow. 30% chance of showers along the coastal regions. Over the interior, we are expecting clear skies over most parts. In the Middle East, we cannot expect any rainfall, but partly cloudy skies for tonight going to tomorrow. And again, we still expect 30% chance of showers along the coastal regions. Over the interior of the Sahara Desert, partly cloudy skies to clear skies. El Fasher at 36, 37 for Khartoum, and 32 in Agadez. Tripoli, maximum of 13, and Baghdad, Cairo at a maximum of 28. 16 is a maximum in Sana'a. Over the western parts, we're still expecting isolated along the coastal regions to scattered thunder showers. Over the interior, it will be clear. Again, along the north coastal regions, 30% chance of showers expected for tonight and tomorrow. And overnight, we'll see some rainfall stretching into the interior of Ghana and some parts of Nigeria. But for tomorrow afternoon, we are expecting lots of rainfall along the coastal regions. The interior, we are expecting clear skies. And your temperatures will be at 18 in Marrakech, 29 in Abidjan, and 30 for Conakry. That's all. Ndawendo.
Jumbo Africa, welcome to the newsroom. I'm Elvis Preslin. I'm Kenny Mahamad.
Let us build our continent brick by brick, stone by stone, until we achieve.
Cross had asked the court to review and cancel the contract after adverse findings by both the Auditor General as well as the Public Protector.
Well, Christianity is under attack globally. It has been from the beginning of time.
Get all the dominating stories locally and globally on Newsroom every Monday to Friday from 9 a.m.
We do not just speak. We let every voice in our nation find full expression in language and in culture. We do not just teach. We empower all people with education. We do not just bring you the news, we place you where the news is happening. We do not just entertain, we take you on journeys. We do not just broadcast sport, we create an arena for sporting heroes to inspire you. Ours is not just a job, it's a calling to ensure that everyone in our nation is informed, educated, and entertained. We're able to do this because you do your part. SABC TV licenses. It's all made possible by you.
We make sure to be where news is happening,
both locally and globally. For the latest business news, stay with us.
From South Africa to the world, we've got all your latest sporting news.
Don't miss our weather updates every hour. Stay tuned to News Today, Monday to Friday, from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News.
With the stories of abuse from the other 8, but they haven't been ready to pursue any angles. They've offered their support. They've offered the comfort to the 8s, and it's been an amazing journey.
It feels like your heart actually literally sunk in your shoes.
It wasn't a long encounter. I think at the time I froze.
The way the criminal justice system deals with sexual violence is problematic. And I don't know, unless there's a fundamental change in many things, the way prosecutors deal with the victim in the matter.
For all investigative insights, stay tuned to Special Assignment every Saturday at 17:30.
Violence against women, it also talks to such behavior where teachers, instead of educating kids and give them dignity, they strip them of their dignity.
The First Lady.
The First Lady, her action, it's just unacceptable. I must say that it cannot be condoned. If I had it my way, I would say we had to act and make sure that he goes to jail.
This scourge is not ceasing.
The angry people, the intolerant, it's so huge. So then the scourge finds itself within that particular environment. You cannot say that it's a standalone. It's influenced by social ills, economic challenges.
Join me in Port Sedu live every Monday to Thursday at 17:30.